Hey everybody, and welcome to another JASP tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to continue our power module series and talking about the various power analyses that you can do. In this episode, we are going to talk about the next one. So let's click on this and let's go to the next one, which is a one sample t-test. Hooray! Now, I do recommend. Now, how do you get the power analysis module? Well, you need to upgrade your JASP to 0.17.2. You got to get that last one in there. I also recommend getting the hot fix in case you haven't, because there were some major bug fixes that were messing around with people. All right, one sample t-test. Now, when you open the power analysis module, it's going to be an independent sample t-test, but all you have to do is choose one sample t-test on the statistical test drop-down menu, and you'll all be good, you know? All right, so let's close plots. Let's close data generation. I did those in a previous video of the overview for this module, so we are just going to focus here on figuring out power. Okay, so power analyses involve 4 pieces of information. What are those 4 pieces of information? Well, the first one is sample size. The second one is effect size. The third one is power. And the fourth one is alpha, or your type 1 error rate. Those 4 things all have a relationship with one another in a null hypothesis statistical test. And so it's very important that if we know 3 of these things, then we can determine the 4th algebraically, which is lovely, right? So what I use these power analyses modules for, whether it's in JASP or using the standard jpower 3.1, is for a priori power analyses. Now, what are a priori power analyses? These are the ones where we're trying to figure out our required sample size for a given effect size that we're looking for, a given power level that we want, or 1 minus beta, and a known or chosen alpha or type 1 error rate, right? So that's the best way to use these modules. That's the best way, in my opinion. The best way to use these modules is to use them a priori. I will show you the other 2 ways, which is if we want to calculate power for a post-hoc power analysis, post-hoc power calculation, and then if we want to use the ability to calculate the effect size that we are looking for. Now, a one sample t-test is a comparison of a known population parameter, okay, so the population mean, to an observed or sample value, in this case, the sample mean, right? So we're just going to compare something that we already know, a number that we already know, to a number that we measured, right, in our sample. So how many people do we need for that kind of calculation? The interesting thing is that this is essentially a paired samples t-test, to be honest with you. It's essentially a paired samples t-test. So you're going to get the same values either way, in most cases, okay? So if we want to calculate the sample size for an a priori power analysis, well, let's change some of the parameters here, okay? So minimal effect size of interest, 0.5 is a medium effect, 0.2 is a small, 0.8 is large according to Cohen. Minimum desired power, 0.9, that's pretty high power. That is warranted, but that's fine. And then the type 1 error rate, or alpha, is 0.05. I don't suggest changing this at all. 0.05 is pretty much the gold standard for null hypothesis testing these days. So just go ahead and do that, right? Just go ahead and do that. So minimum desired power, 0.9. Let's see what happens when we change some of these things. So minimal effect size of interest, our delta here, our Cohen's d. Let's change this to a small effect. And then place your bets in the comments. Pause the video right here. Well, maybe not pause the video. Let me give you the instructions. Place your bets on if it's going to go higher or if this is going to go lower for our n. Do we need more? Do we need less? Pause the video to comment. All right, let's click away from this so it accepts the change. It's calculating 265. Oh boy, that's a lot. Okay, it's not exactly the same as a paired samples t-test, but it's very similar. Okay, now we need 265. So like 10, almost like 8 times. No, 8 times. What am I saying? Let's see, how many times? 265 divided by 4 for 44. 6 times. 6 times as many participants. We needed 44 to find a medium effect. Now just to go down 0.3 standard deviations, we need 6 times the amount of people to achieve a power of 0.9. Wild. Well, let's say we can't do 265 or don't need a power level of 0.9. Now, more power is more better in most cases, right? More power is more better. That's always going to be an axiom in most cases, right? But let's change this to what I typically teach in my classes of 0.8, right? So 0.8. This is a convention in the literature. We're saying it's 20% chance that we miss the effect. Okay. I mean, yes, we are doubling the chances of missing the effect by going from 0.9 to 0.8 power, but it will probably reduce the amount of people we need to measure, which is important here, right? So let's go ahead and put 0.8 here and let's click away from it and see what happens. 199. Okay, so going from a small effect of 44 participants, or a medium effect, excuse me, of 44 participants for 0.8 or 0.9 power, And now we need 199 divided by 44. That's only 4.5 times as many people that we need, right? Only 4.5 times. So that's not bad. Let me change this now back to 0.5. So for 0.9, we were at 44 people. Now if we change this to 0.5, we only need 34 people. Now you kind of can see where, the t-test and 30 participants idea came from, right? It's 34 people. Well, that's all I need. And I end up with a actual power of 0.81, which is more than I needed. So sure, why not? If I change this, let's say we're only looking for a large effect with 0.8 power, 0.8 Cohen's D, we only need 15 people. 15 people. And you can see this on the power contour here, that you sort of diminishing returns. 15 people, 0.8. Look at that. That's how you do an a priori power analysis. You just plug in your other parameters to find the fourth one, your 3 to find the fourth. That's how you do it. Now that you get the power contour and the power curve by effect. By default, you can turn those off if you don't want them. But this most of this is pretty useful information. Okay, and that's how you do a priori power analysis. Now, what if we already had measurement and we were trying to calculate the power that we achieved? Okay, so I didn't change anything. The only thing that happens when we do this is that we can't mess with power. But let's say our sample size was 20, right? We only needed 15 to find this large effect, right? Let's say our sample size was 20. Well, our power would be 0.924 because we only needed 15 to get 0.8 power. And so we had 5 more people than that. Our power increases. So that's how you do a post-hoc power analysis. The name of the chart doesn't change. I think it should, but that's a fix that can be done later down the line. You're going to copy this into a document maybe to be able to manipulate it in Word or Google Docs or something like that. So, it's fine. Now, the last one here is an effect size calculator. Now, effect size calculators are a dime a dozen all over the internet. I recommend using one of those for your specific test, but we can use it here. The math is the same. It's fine. The calculation's still happening under the hood, right? It's still doing that. And so instead here, it replaces our Cohen's D. So with 20 people, right? With 20 people, as we see here, 0.05 error rate, type 1 error rate, our alpha, and then a 0.8 minimum desired power. What's our actual effect size? Is it 0.8 Cohen's D? Is that it? No, it's actually 0.66. 0.66. But we have a good chance of detecting it. So, or a good chance of missing. But since we're closer to 0.8, we're probably going to hit it. All right. So we can't change that. But this is really just telling us what our our Cohen's D actually was, right? What our Cohen's D actually was, which was 0.66. Not a bad effect. It's in between a medium and a large effect. So, useful for many cases. This is, of course, a one sample t-test. So, you're not doing many of these. You're not going to see a lot of these in the literature. There's not very many one sample t-tests that find themselves in literature these days. But that is the case if you were doing a one sample t-test. So that's how you do one sample t-test in power analysis in the power module in JASP 0.17.2. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or other feedback, please leave those in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.